The next poem begins with an epigraph by Sylvia Plath. Every woman adores a fascist, the boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. The boot. I fucked Professor on my period, pulled his ears while he plucked the string out with his teeth, told me he wasn't afraid to taste a little blood. I fucked Father on the church pew, hymns torn, almost to nothing. How sweet the sound, how sweet the blood of the lamb. How do they do it? Sharon asks. The ones who make love without love. I tell her I've done it on dorm room carpet, done daddy next to Jesus. So many daddies and false messiahs. I'm not saying it was beautiful as ice skaters whirling ice or bones bowed inside each other. Think crown of thorns, think rust and screw, think I'm ugly for punishment. That sometimes a daughter sticks her head in the oven. Sometimes she comes to the rock for the slaughter. Comes, face red as wine, red as meat, red as a child begging, daddy, daddy, don't leave. Thank you. Figure study. 1. I was so used to men staring, I thought it was the price I paid. 2. I used to wear fear like a robe I couldn't drop before walking on stage, afraid the artist might find something I can't see in my own body or face. I once stood naked in the middle of a classroom, blood dripping between my legs. I did not move, did not wipe it away. I let it fall to my feet until the timer rang. 3. I learned to stand naked for hours in stillness, to be the canvas, blank, to give to the artist what's needed, mostly shadows and shapes. A man once told me I was too beautiful to paint, that there was something about me he couldn't capture. I learned at a young age not to give it all away, that it's better to be the muse than the mate. I told him I felt the same. I can't grasp myself either, too good at silence, at restraint. I'm an artist, I say. The world is too loud. The body is never still, always churning, bleeding to create. I want to tell you what it's like to be cut into marble, hung in a gallery, frozen in a frame. I want to tell you what it's like to watch a man mold you in still life, to let him believe he's your maker as he carves your ivory waist. Such desire for the body he has formed, such art his hands crave. I want to tell you what it's like to hold a man in stillness for hours, then walk out unscathed. The astronaut and the suit. My body, you are an animal, a bloody animal. Before I left my mother, we made an agreement. You promised to hold me. I promised to feed you. My body, you are the door my son entered and left. You grew him with the discipline of a rishi and the efficiency of a watch. I'm starving, but I can't eat my body. I burn toast to swallow black, chew and chew and chew. Thank you. I'm going to take a little pivot here. The first part of the book, the beginning, is more focused on kind of the macro issues going on politically on all levels as far as human rights are concerned, and also mostly coming from a perspective of a woman, a mother, and her body. The middle of the book is more focused on motherhood and having a child, and then the end ends with death. So I'm going to take a leap into the middle of the book, the apex, and then we're going to end with death, as we all do. So I thought I was ready to be a mother, thought I understood the weight of the uterus, its boundless waters. This poem begins with an epigraph by Lee Herrick. My earthly inheritance, your arms, your sigh, your heavy song. The rain fell, the floods came. I lost the lyric when I left my mother, entered the fluorescent room. I lost it with the first prick of the needle, when the sun imploded and became some kind of hole I was pulled from. I lost it in church when I sang to a room full of strangers, heads submerged in communal waters. I lost the lyric when I opened my legs for a man I will not name. For the earth we ravage, my God, his holy thumb pressing us into the dirt. I lost it for a child yanked from in between, a boy who calls me mother, asks I turn the world red as the uterus, as the sky we came from, as the rock I was told to stand on. But I built my house on the sand, never listened when they said the floods would come. And he came, and he came, and he came, and a belly became a song, became heavy with song. Thank you. Just gonna read a few more. Thank you so much. That star right there. A mother punches a wall until her knuckles bleed, sticks her face into a pillow and screams. She looks at her son and thinks, love is so lonely. At any moment, he could be gone. A mother prays death will take her, then begs forgiveness. She could never leave her boy here alone. Once a year, his father sends an email, pours guilt like gasoline down her throat. Why November? She'll never know. Maybe it's that winter is faded, or is it the milk white chill in the child asks, where's my dad? Sometimes a mother points up to the night. Sometimes a mother lies. Veil of the flower. Son, I found your father face down in chrysanthemum. Can't stop seeing his bald head, the quarter moon, the blue sky. Can't stop the odor, trapped gophers, fried hair. This is love, I tell myself. A dead father, finally dead. Forgive me, I didn't cry, didn't bury him in a casket. I placed a sheet over the rot and watered with gasoline. Lit the outline of a sunflower, offered it like a lamb. Thank you. That poem's really scary to read because I know my son's gonna read it someday. And I actually debated I went back and forth before this book was published, and I was like, should I take that poem out? It's so vulnerable, and it's also not totally true, which poetry isn't always totally true. So I had this existential crisis about my son reading my poetry someday. He's only 6 right now. He's just learning to read and hating me for it. But I decided that I had to be true to the art and to the metaphor. The end of the book ends on the death of the father and on death in general, but it also relates to the death of the patriarchy and the father that is in control, the dominator, the father that I talk a lot about at the beginning of the book. So I decided to be true to the art, and I know that my son, and he's an artist in heart, and he'll understand someday. But it was a tricky one to read, and actually that was my first time reading it live. So we're gonna end, thank you, on Cypress Cemetery. Blackbirds graze in rows between headstones. Yellowing grass sways with westerly winds. From a broken pine, starlings sing, and I walk with the dead underneath as vultures winnow in circles over me, as if I'm the only one here, slowly dying. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kathryn. That was amazing. Thank you for reading something that you've never read out loud in front of an audience before. That makes it very special. Amazing work. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I'm just switching to gallery so I can find, there he is. The next poet, so I can, oh, he already unmuted himself, so I don't have to do that, never mind. Thank you so much. Really, Kathryn, it was beautiful. Rob Sturma typed that I should interrupt all of the features today, just to be fair. So you're not gonna know when it's gonna happen. No, I'm kidding, I'm not gonna interrupt anybody else. Kathryn, I'm so sorry I did that too. Coming up next, another book that we will be, well, really, you just heard from a book we have published. Now you're gonna hear from a book we will be publishing in 2021. And this is one of those times where something good, at least for Moontide, came out of the pandemic, because this poet, Gustavo Hernandez's amazing book, Flower Grand First, was to be published by another press. I can't remember the name of that press, because it doesn't matter anymore, because they unfortunately folded due to COVID-19. And their loss was Moontide's absolute gain. I'm so excited for this author to join the Moontide family. So our next reader is going to be Gustavo Hernandez. Here's his bio. Gustavo Hernandez is the author of the micro chapbook Form His Arms from Ghost City Press. His full-length poetry collection Flower Grand First is forthcoming from Moontide Press in 2021. About March, you can find it. His work has previously been published in Read, Acentos Review, Sonora Review, and other publications. He was born in, my Spanish is so bad, so Jalisco, Mexico, and lives in Southern California. Sorry, Gustavo. Give it up for Gustavo Hernandez, everybody, with his mighty He-Man collection behind him.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I want to just quickly thank Eric and Moontide for picking this book up. This summer has been a wild ride. I mean, it was crazy. So it went, up and down and up and down, but Eric was there to save the day. And thanks to Alex Umlas, who is a wonderful poet. She's the one who made the connection there. So I want to thank her very much. All right, I think we're just gonna get to it. So the first poem I'm going to read is called California. What else could anyone make of your new constellation? White rubber soles burning with a tight white glow beneath the void black of some new Nikes. Check the cut of the shorts, the too high hem. You can trace its shape down the coast. There is not a pure Mexican drop of sky inside it. I am walking down a sidewalk on East Ocean, washed in this and other lights. To someone like me, even the coast should be foreign. Moon horns open to the south. One of my vocabularies compliantly slips under the other. I want your light to cross-cut into me and show them that my favorite part about this place is that my father brought me here. Thank you. Now we're gonna go back in time a little bit. I'm gonna take you guys on a journey through time and distance and space and who knows what else. So this one is called Santa Ana, 4th grade. Is that the ferry? Our voices all squeak, so this question isn't about that. Someone's been paying attention, and again, I am named before I have understood myself. Someone has discovered me, a girl who is the cousin of a boy I thought and called my friend, a boy who's named himself white trash because he is among us. Someone has discovered me, chaining the clovered horizon to garland. They've seen the crushed jacaranda paste on my palms. So this is a spot where I branch out in purple. Here, where the popsicle melts its red and its blue. This one street, wide as a landing strip, heat waves rippling in the invisible, asphalt markings that lead up to them like a parable to temptation. Now we're going to go ahead and go back to Jalisco with this poem. It's called Baudelia. Grand Mal seizures. My guess, it was my tia Baudelia's burden. All of these decades later, from what my mother tells me, all of her life in Jalisco, at the foot of a plateau, some wilderness, in the disadvantage of an era, to us now, the disadvantage of old time, in an adobe house, in the mist, el gran mal. When my grandmother died, her daughters thought they saw the source of her cancer take the shape of an owl and fly into the dry moonlit ruffle of a guamuchil. In town, depressed women were explained by poison fed to them in food flavored with envy or by the hands of jilted lovers. But Baudelia was different. What ill will could befall someone who lived clutching her mother's rebozo her entire life? A sickness, a sadness, poor child, poor girl, poor woman. I guess at her half living in a stasis, I paint joy in the warm dirt patios of spring, ear to a rustle and glint of a finch song in the Noche Buena, the warmth of the stone oven in her parents' kitchen, the blossoms of her sister's fortunes. My mother says when I was born, she asked to hold me, that I felt her arms outstretching, her breath expanding. Give him to me, Lupe. I can hold him. I won't drop him. I won't get sick. Thank you. These next couple of poems are from the second section of the book. The first section deals more with immigrating to the United States and being a child. So a lot of those poems are informed by that, and also informed by Jalisco as it was. The middle section is more rooted in California, and it has more to do with me growing up and coming to terms with my identity as a gay man within the context of the landscape, within the context of my family, and within the context of society and their expectations. So this poem is called Zach Spears Bartends at the Fault Line. And I wrote it for my friend Rudy. We walk in half hexed by sun, the light inside a softer appraiser. The whole place is wet with summer answers. It is 2 in the afternoon. And everyone is low light, going from sermon to hymn, semaphore to boxing drill. We are low light, all haunches and confidence. Let's call each other grown among bodies that say nothing else. Muscle mature, bristling, curved, capable. Let's call each other grown in the center of the city, crushed and ecstatic, flanked by what we say we want. But say you still hear our parents calling into our rooms, our nieces as children. Say you can still feel the chain link fences, the gardenias growing through them. It is early enough. Thank you. This next one is called Along the 15 near Baker. So I'm taking you guys all over the place today. We would maybe go to Vegas, but right now it's probably not a good idea. Along the 15 near Baker, a radio signal travels down a small hill carried on the winking quartz and granite. It plays a repeating segment about the Mojave, cinder cones, rattlers, the importance of cool water, the steady voice, the reminder to be careful. I remind myself of this drive with someone else. He put his left hand on my knee and wondered aloud if a Joshua tree could survive in our backyard. So far south, one more thing we might try to keep alive. Just like you and I, we didn't stop for the sand in the Mojave. Just like us, we didn't need to talk so much. I mentioned these small things to you, but you're sleeping, warm under your own weight, breathing out your own significance. Thank you. And now we're gonna come back to the San Gabriel Valley. This really is a journey. I didn't plan it out like this, but maybe, I guess the whole book kind of is. This one is called Sunday, San Gabriel Valley. A week after I kissed him just because I could, he nearly brought me into the house to meet his dying mother. Instead, he delivered the flowers, and I was left in the car, rolling the peeled off barcode between my fingers. His city was gravel quarries, some speedway, a dam taking in the last of the day's red gradient. And next was the peeling yellow of a restaurant where the owner knew his father. On the way there, his childhood was nicked on and pulled through apartment windows and middle school chain link with urgency. The crumbling parking stops, fingers pushing between mine, shadow cylinders of the old brewery disappearing into the highway. And 40 miles south, without the need for me to think of it, my family was a doorway expanding, whole, all tomorrows. Thank you. The next couple of poems, the last couple of poems, are from the last section of the book. This was originally supposed to have been a chapbook. I started writing it and I thought I knew what it was, the shape it was going to take. It was almost done, and I felt, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. And while I was writing the book, my father passed away, and I realized that I couldn't, like, looking at the poems that I had already written, he was there so much that I thought, this is not a collection really about me. Like, it's a collection about where I fit next to him and next to my mother and next to my siblings and my friends. So yeah, it's just one of those lessons, where sometimes you think you know it all, and then the universe has other plans. This poem's called Marte. Around the time the first holiday billboards go up, I raise a finger to a point in the night. To my eldest sister, say, look, that red light is Mars. We have been more than 1 year without him, and just now we are starting to see things again. So much of our knowledge about the skies is gone. Chart blind, codices black, all questions we have forgotten to ask, the color of the orbs, the slabs of moonlight. I tell her the planet has been floating there for weeks. And I really mean to say, we must try to hold on to everything we can still recognize, even the need to look for our fathers in the sky. Thank you. This next poem, I keep wanting to say this next song. I used to play music in my 20s, and I think I'm still traumatized by that. This is called I'm Aware I'll Grow Old. I'm aware I'll grow old like my mother's father and her brothers, proud, ruddy men of the plains, copper brown hair seeding to white in tight-lipped lines, not without a fight. The way my mother defended what was hers, the land, the cows, the property, while my father worked up north, her Holy Spirit fire. Those parcels of ritual anger I feel steaming in me too. Honor of the landowner, sufficiency of cattle rancher, bronze button charro of the high plain with a magical control of twirling lassos. Even with all that in the mirror, Father, when you died, I only looked for your dark tan, wished for your humble hands in fields of lettuce, your raw fingers in steel beams, broad arm bracing a machine to cut into the growing fennel. That navigating brown core, steering heart, pushing blood, moving limb, lungs in melody, still whistling of goodwill and of fair labor. Okay, thank you so much. So I have 2 poems left, and I had one on kind of on the back burner because it's brand new. Like, I just wrote it a couple of days ago, but I want to read it, so I'm going to do it. It's called 1990 20XX. Some nights I'd sit in any open driveway space. Across the street, the skyline was a dim bulb outline of an avocado tree and a television antenna. Beyond, the future was a searchlight, one of those Hollywood premiere numbers. The future was a McDonald's commercial where the moon plays a grand piano in a rented tux. The future was the DNA remix of Tom's Diner. Not this sad finite iridescence. How a truck can go from orange cream to scarab shell to that loud sweetness he called burgundy, then disappear, even though its downshifting always sounded so long breath hopeful. All night, the city holds its color still to signal what is missing. The eastern stretch of First Street won't unclasp into the hills. Not one grain of earth decides to release another. The spray paint messages dry and sink into the murals. The night used to ring out in synthesizer bells. Here is where they sat and counted one another. you see, there had been a father. So my last poem is called The Hereafter. And again, I want to thank all of you for listening. I have been so lucky to have poetry come into my life. I just don't know like what I deserve. I mean, what I did to deserve all this kindness from everyone. It's been staggering. Like, it's been stunning. It's been wonderful. And every time I meet a new poet, like I'm meeting Rich and Kathryn and Alexis, it's just the best. I mean, I'm really enjoying this, and I thank you all for being a part of it. The hereafter is like everything around me, built by my father. His feet in wood frames full of mud and straw, comically slowed down by that strange small dog who ran ahead to be his companion. Of course, there are bean sprouts growing below the corn stalks, fields of wild tuberose, and the boulder ledges of our river. The night filled with oil lamp bright, noon songs incomplete without some light radio static. It will always be Jalisco. I'll just go out and say it. Say that the eyes of those who are mine adjust not to an ascent as much as a return. After all of our years, we finally set out toward the right horizon. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Gus. Thank you. That was incredible. It was so great to hear and see you read your work, because I've only read it on the page. Incredible. I think everybody would agree. That was fantastic. Wow, man. Fantastic. I feel it's so incredibly, truly blessed. Just all the readers that we're hearing tonight. It's just incredible. I am so, so fortunate that I get to help you guys get your work out into the world, and it is me who's incredibly blessed. So I love your gratitude, Gus, but it's really me who's grateful. I'm going to use this opportunity. It's our halfway point. I have a couple of plugs. I thought now would just be a good time to make a couple of announcements. Normally when we do live readings, it's an opportunity to buy the author's book. Dania was awesome enough. She shared a link to Kathryn's book earlier in the chat, so you can scroll through the chat to find that. But what's nice is that people want to buy other Moontide titles, and buying books, obviously, the poets get some money, the press gets some money, but in the time of COVID, we can't have those live readings where you get to see our giant table of books, and we have so many books. Thank you for sharing that link to all of our books. But a really great way that you can support the press to make sure that we can stick around and continue to publish 2021, 2022, 2023 is to do this really great thing that we're offering, our Moontide mystery bags. Especially with October coming up, would be a fun little Halloween trick or treat to receive a Moontide mystery bag of 3 randomly selected Moontide titles, and sometimes some other goodies as well also. So you can purchase a Moontide bag and help us get poetry into your hands that you would probably be picking up anyways when you saw the table of amazing poets. So consider making that purchase. You can also become a patron or a subscriber to Moontide Titles. There's different tiers. There's a platinum tier, which gives you every single book we publish in the course of the year for $100. And there's also different tier levels of 30, 40, and 50 that comes with some other perks. So you can find that information out on our website. It just helps the press continue to do what we're doing right now, to publish poets who deserve to have their work out there, like Gustavo, like Kathryn. And you get a lot of great stuff for it too. So hope you'll consider supporting. And also, our latest title just arrived on my doorstep today. It's called When the Pain Starts by Alan Passman. I didn't think I was going to have this in hand yet, but it is a poetry graphic novel. So every poem in this collection is accompanied by different art. This is really, really cool. And this is available still for pre-order. We're still calling it pre-order, so you get free shipping if you order it. It's really a cool collection. So that's up on Moontide too. I think those are all the plugs I have at this moment. I've got a few other that I'll make, but I wanted to use that halftime to make those announcements. So our next poet is probably, she has a lot to do with some of these voices that I get to discover because of her immense ties and just amazingness. Her wide reach, because, and it just goes to show of just not only how talented she is, but I think Kathryn was speaking earlier about how, you know, there's no cattiness. She's all about supporting and building other poets up. And she is an incredible example of how I want to be as a publisher. It's never about knocking other poets down or other publishing companies down. It's how do we build each other up? So thank you, Alexis, for just being such a beacon of light and how we all should just conduct ourselves in this community and in this space. So I've known Alexis for a long time. I'm familiar with her work. And the first thing that I did when I took over Moontide Press was put out an anthology, because Moontide always put out anthologies before I took it over in 2017. They tend to put out anthologies, and I loved what they did. Was it was more of like a showcasing of various voices. So it was like usually around 12 different poets. So the first thing that I wanted to do when I took over the press was put out an anthology. And I wanted to showcase different voices to kind of set the tone of where I wanted Moontide Press to go, the new direction, the aesthetic, so to speak, but still always championing new voices, but with a little more edge. And Alexis definitely fits that bill. So she submitted some work to Lullaby of Teeth, and I was just automatically just stoked that she thought to send it to us. And then she came to me with her chapbook Junkie Wife, and it was just a real quick yes. It was such an incredible chapbook, and it is a lot of people's favorites. So Alexis is published in Best American Poetry, Rattle, Poetry East, Hobart, Verse Daily, American Journal of Poetry. Oh, so many, so many. Wide Awake, Poets Los Angeles, and elsewhere. She's authored 5 published poetry collections, most recently Junkie Wife, that was in 2018, The Dead Kid Poems by KYSO Flash Press in 2019, Erotic, New and Selected from New York Quarterly, and another full-length collection in Italian will be published in early 2021. That's going to be incredible, having her work translated. Her photographs are published worldwide, including River Styx and the covers of Pithead Chapel, Heyday, and Witness. She is a multiple Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee. And Alexis is the poetry editor of Cultural Weekly, which is such an incredible online publication. Please give it up. I'm asking her to unmute herself right now for Alexis Rhone Fancher, everybody.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. A pleasure to be here. It says a lot for Moontide to look at the eclectic work that he publishes, that Eric publishes, remarkable poets, always open. It's a real pleasure to know you and to be a Moontide author. I'm delighted to be reading with Kathryn and Gus and my dear friend, Rich Ferguson. Eric said there'd be no barriers. I could read whatever I want. So that's what I'm gonna do. This one was published in Harbor Review and was just nominated for Best of the Net. Yay. And it was requested by our publisher. So it's called Power Play. When my lover tells me I cannot say no and I protest, she parts my legs and says, yes, baby, yes. Do what I'm told. No becomes a foreign country. I take it as permission, open season. So when the waiter asks if there'll be anything else, I peruse his menu. I'm stuffed, but I say yes, cram my mouth with macaroons and chocolate. And when the Lyft driver seduces me in the rear view, asks me like, hey, May I kiss you? I say, yes. And when the long-legged woman I've long lusted at the gym wonders aloud if I am single, asks me to dinner and a movie, I say yes. And when she invites me into her bed, what can I say but yes, yes, yes? And when my fan in Nova Scotia begs me to be his muse, to sanction an explicit ode to my breasts, my ankles, my lower lip, a poem he'd never show his wife, I cannot say no to his lust and delusion. Now he wants to climb me, sublime me, shoot me full of stars. Is this what you want too? He writes, and I answer, yes. And when I return to my lover at last and she sinks into the heady dampness between my thighs and asks, have you been faithful? I say, yes. That's it. Thank you. I was going to read something kind of tame next to balance things out, but I'm not. This is something I wrote a little bit ago, but it is unpublished because nobody has the balls. So we'll see. It's called Porn on the 4th of July, and it's a love poem to my husband. I like a man who can keep the party going, I say, nodding my head in sync with the actor's white ass as he pumps up and down. We're watching French porn again, making fun of the way they use spit instead of lube. French lube, we joke, unable to look away as the well-hung man hawks a loogie into the actress's lady parts. Aside from that, I like the French, the men who stay hard for hours, the women who murmur, oui, 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 with every thrust, like they can't get enough. Outside too, it's steamy, the windows open to the sulfurous air. The night is rife with holiday pandemonium, and we can see the fireworks from here, golden chrysanthemums, shrieking crossettes and diadems bursting. The neighborhood dogs staccato their non-stop howl, and when my lover ignites me, I join them in a high-pitched chorus. Each day, my love finds new porn to tempt me. He knows what I like. Twosomes or threesomes, no bondage, brutality, or handcuffs. Last week, he introduced me to Japanese metro porn, how the schoolgirl giggles behind her hand when the stranger lifts her skirt, salarymen surrounding the fornicating couple, oblivious. You're a fool for love, my lover says, and I say, oui. Outside too, they're reaching the finale. Cherry bombs scar the dark. Oh, that's us going off like Roman candles, wailing louder than the dogs. I'm going to read a few now from Junkie Wife. Please don't tell my other publishers what is my favorite book ever that I've ever done. Probably the truest, most honest. Kathryn, occasionally poetry is the truth. Not always, but you know. And this book starts out, no names were changed. No one was innocent. Okay. Let's see. Things I put in my mouth. Repressed desire, a gin martini, a one-night stand, a hangnail, kung pao chicken, a sleepless night. Your first edition of being and nothingness, a botched pavlova, trust issues, off-ramp roses, a night on the lam, second thoughts, a butterfly, an admission, 3 lies, floss, coffee ice cream, a hole-in-one, the Kama Sutra, an interior decorator, a remorse-filled sigh, a tic-tac, a ballerina's ankle, enough rope, my foot, your bad, an epiphany. I'd almost forgotten. Your cock, your cock, your cock. The lovers on Pfeiffer Beach. I don't think you saw them, scant feet above us, sheltered in a hollow below the cliffs, like watching a porno film, the way she sucked her lover's lovely cock, her lush blondness shimmering as she dipped her head, his hard body illuminated in the harsh morning sun. We were sitting on a blanket, sucking slowly straight from the bottle. I pointed them out on the cliff, but you were busy with your phone. No service, you groused. You were always someplace else. I watched over your shoulder as he turned her to enter from behind, his big hands cupping her breasts, his tireless ass thrusting. Mick Jagger's I Can't Get No Satisfaction kept playing in my head like our theme song, the one you couldn't hear. When I pocketed your phone, you asked me to marry you again. On the cliff, the lovers shuddered, broke apart, then embraced, their blonde congruency so at odds with our mismatched desire. Above us, kamikaze seagulls circled. They threw their heads back and screeched. You reached for me, but I was not yet drunk enough. I would never be drunk enough. On the cliff, the blonde pressed her naked breasts against her lover's chest. He stared over her shoulder at me, his eyes a dare. Then he put his hands to his lips and blew a kiss. I caught it in my mouth. I handed you the phone and started down the beach with the bottle of Stoli, his sweet kiss languishing on my tongue. Thank you. This chaplet deals with my first really awful marriage, less than a year from beginning to end. And my brief but deadly almost love affair with hard narcotics, which thankfully I don't have anymore. This is the poem that kind of talks about that. It's called Keep Walking. On Las Palmas Avenue, approaching Hollywood Boulevard, I hear a scream. In the spill of the porch lamp, the girl looks 14, cowering in the courtyard of this windy night, cheap stilettos stemming her pale legs up into tiny shorts. Two men the size of refrigerators slap her face like she's meat that needs tenderizing. One stands behind her, pins her arms. The other brute yells in her face, "You will fuck who I say when I say." When he pulls back to smack her again, I look away. In Hollywood, the streets talk trash, hold murder in their asphalt, blood in the potholes, used hypodermics float in the gutters, rats dance on the lawns. The girl lurches, stumbles in those 5-inch heels, the only thing separating her from the ground. The two men toss her back and forth like a football. Her eyes catch mine. When her pimp sees me, he hollers in my face, "Keep walking." I'm late. My dealer is impatient. I do what I'm told. High on pot, tequila, fear. I head into the neon of Hollywood Boulevard. Keep walking till I can't hear her screams. This is something new that was published in Swim a few weeks ago. It has an epigraph from Napoleon to Josephine. I'm returning in 3 days. Don't wash. And it's called Don't Wash. If I don't, will you slip your fingers into me, inhale them surreptitiously? If I don't, will you sneak my panties into your pocket, save them for a midnight snack? How to fill the waiting. I touch myself so I can savvy what you rut in. Bring my fingers to my mouth. Imagine you in our bed, returned from the 3-day fray, redolent of the weight of the world, and me, your dirty, dirty girl, naked, eager as you make your way down, breathing in my hair, my lips, the sweet spot where neck meets collarbone. I've made a religion of your fantasies, a science of what you desire. That ferine moan, my always startled gasp at first thrust. I angle, cocked hips a bit askew, how I arch for maximum penetration, hands pushing against your chest while my thighs pull you in. Our bed is a rocket launch, a bacchanal, a pelican steep dive into the sea. I revel in that you revel in me. A lifetime away from Michael, my first love, that long ago when I'd used the freshening wipe before I arrived so as not to offend. I'd spread myself wide on his bed, confident, watching the top of his head, black curls, as he explored me, that fear of not being summer's eve fresh, worried my pussy might disenchant the musk of me all wiped away. He raised his head. Next time, Michael said, don't wash. Let's see, I have 2 more. This was published a couple of years ago in Michael Sim's wonderful online literary magazine, Vox Populi. It's called Thin Skinned. You called it the winter of the oranges, that February into March when our love was new and the downtown farmers market sold thin-skinned navel oranges for cheap. You'd grab our reusable bags and head for Fifth Street, sampling each farmer's juicy segments before bringing home a 10-pound sack. I'd never tasted such consistent sweetness, orange to orange, sack to sack, week to week, like nature had conspired to make every orange equal. Bursting they were, skin too thin to peel with my fingers. They needed a sharp knife to slice them smartly into quarters or peel them whole, rind a single perfect spiral, a 3-way between peel, pith, and fruit. That winter, you squeezed the juice into goblets overflowing. You poured your love into me, but spring came, the night bled, something stupid I said. You and the oranges turned bitter overnight. I want to thank everyone before I read my last poem for being so kind and generous. Kathryn, Eric, it's my joy and my pleasure to promote other poets, other artists. I've been lucky enough to have a platform for the last 8 years with Cultural Weekly, and an opportunity that I'm really very grateful for. I would like to say that I am a feral poet. I have a degree in theater with an emphasis in acting, thus the Sarah Bernhardt you see here, but I don't have the MFA. I don't have any of that stuff attached to me, so I don't have any kind of competition. You know, we are who we are. That's it. This one is a request from a friend. and one of my favorite poems. It was first published in Slipstream and then appeared on Verse Daily. So I'm going to end with this one. It's called Midnight in the Backyard of Lust and Longing. The saphists are at it again. Screw yous ricochet off our common walls. Invectives landmine my window. You cheating bitch! Like clockwork, this drunken Friday night climax to their ceaseless lovers' quarrel. I'll kill you, I hear the big one growl, and then the smashed plates, the screams. By the time the cops arrive, it's a full-out brawl. Two women spilling from their back door, tussling across the no man's land between their tiny backyard and mine. Worse than animals. This time it's Holly, the younger one, dragged to the patrol car, yellow hair wilding, small hands cuffed behind her back, kicking at the cops in those Daisy Dukes, an army jacket wafting her silhouette. More clothes than she had on the last time the cops rolled up, or the time before. It's almost dawn, and the trees shiver in the fog. Raccoons slink through the tall grass. Marie, Holly's better half, paces the yard in a blue bathrobe and slippers, smoking a cigarette, sobbing as the cops jam her lover into their car. Watch your head, she cries and flings herself across the yard, lunges for Holly through the glass. Baby, baby, she sobs, the reason for their discord forgotten. Holly mouths a sloppy kiss. Marie opens her robe, presses herself against the glass. Can you believe it? I would give anything to be loved like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexis, so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Such feralness, as you'd say. It's great.
Thanks
Thanks for reading that first poem.
My pleasure, anytime.
You know, I talked about anthologies, how that's kind of, I started Moontide with the anthology in 2017. So this is a good moment to plug our next. We have 2 anthologies coming out in 2021, but I'm going to only talk about this first one right now. If you want to know about our other anthology we're putting out, we'll announce that later down the road. But right now, we have an incredible anthology that we're putting out called Shit Men Say to Me, poetry in response to toxic masculinity. It's going to be edited by Hanalena Fennell, Dania Akuli, and Victoria Lynn McCoy. We're accepting submissions for it right now, and we've just posted the submission call in the chat. It is open to anyone regardless of gender, sexual orientation, gender identity. It's open to everyone. We just ask that the submissions be on topic. Previously published is okay. And the submissions will be read and chosen blindly by the 3 editors I mentioned. So we really hope that you consider submitting work to it. And everyone who submits and gets accepted will get 1 contributor copy and be a part of something really, really important and necessary, I think, especially in this time in the world. So we want to get that out there. So please, please, please submit. At this point in time, I'm going to bring up our final reader for the evening. Think about those questions. We'll have a short time for a Q&A. So I definitely want you guys to be thinking if you have any questions at all. But at this time, it's a huge pleasure to get to announce that this author is going to be a Moontide poet. I've known Rich for a very, very long time. I got my start in the whole poetry world. I, like Alexis and so many other poets, it seems, have a background in theater. So I started in theater in college and kind of fell into more performance poetry and the Southern California slam scene. So I used to have a very performative flair to my work. And because of that, a good friend, Hannah Weir, I don't think that's her last name anymore, but Hannah used to have me go with her to perform for incarcerated youth. It was a really great experience, one that I greatly enjoyed. And a couple of those times I had the pleasure of performing with this poet side by side with him. And it was a great, complete honor to get to share that experience with Rich Fergusen. So when he came to me saying he wanted me to publish him, it was just an absolute privilege to get to be able to do so. And damn, is this manuscript very worth it. And I'm so glad he thought of us to be publishing this collection. Thank you, Rich, for seeking us out. And Everything is Radiant Between the Hates is going to be Moontide's first book out in 2021. So pre-orders for that will be going out sometime in November, probably mid-November. So look for that. Rich Fergusen is a Pushcart Prize nominated poet, and he has shared the stage with Patti Smith, Wanda Coleman, Moby, and other esteemed poets and musicians. He's been selected by the National Beat Poetry Foundation, Inc., to serve as the State of California Beat Poet Laureate from September 2020 to 2022. So this month, he's officially our State Beat Poet Laureate. He's been a featured performer in the film What About Me, featuring Michael Stipe, Michael Franti, Katie Lang, and others. His poetry and award-winning spoken word music videos have been widely anthologized, and he was a winner in Opium Magazine's Literary Deathmatch, LA. He's the author of the poetry collection Eighth in Agony by Punk Hostage Press and the novel New Jersey Me, Rare Bird Press. Ferguson's newest poetry collection, as I stated, Everything is Radiant Between the Hates, will be published in January of 2021 by us. So welcome to the Moontide family. Rich, is your volume on?
Yes, I am unmuted, and yeah. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Danya. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And yeah, let's just get to it. Just a few of my childhood misunderstandings. That seahorses were horses with gills and good posture, that Superman's crotch bulge was due to rocks in his short, that Transylvania was really Pennsylvania, only with vampires, that making love meant creating something extra special for your mom in art class, that giving someone the middle finger meant chopping off your own finger and offering it to someone that really pissed you off, that people shopped naked in strip malls, that when girls complained about periods, they were super upset about punctuation, that every step I took involved the risk of encountering cartoon quicksand. He said, "So what does this mean?" She says, "It means what it feels like it means." He says, "But I don't feel anything." She says, "That could mean everything." He says, "But what if we play the record backwards? What if we hold our memories up to a mirror? What will they see that we don't?" She says, "The flowers I once picked for you are now wild dogs snarling at the door." He says, "I'll build us a new house whose location is only known to us." She says, "Our bed is a graveyard." He says, "Those snarling dogs at the door, I've turned them back into flowers and have placed them by your pillow." She says, "Your spider logic has 8 legs too many on which to offer any truth." He says, "I'll write us a new life if only I can find a pen that uses my blood for ink." She says, "You're like the hangover I haven't suffered in years." He says, "You're the empty bottle from which I find it difficult to consume a moment's worth of peace." She says, "Your hands are wounded birds I once thought I could heal." He says, "These aren't wounded birds. These hands are restless musical notes still searching out their song." She says, "The moon is the moon is the moon." He says, "The moon is a bittersweet symphony I used to sing to you on summer nights." She says, "Last night I dreamed you got lost in a desert of your bleach bone sorrow." He says, "Did I make it out alive before your alarm clock went off?" She says, "Nothing." He says, "Funny how a silence can say everything." She says, "Distance is the best medicine for us." He says, "I'll leave my shadow by the door in case you change your mind." She says, roll over and go to sleep. He says, I've been rolling in my grave for lifetimes. She says, why did we even get together in the first place? He says, life's answers are interesting when one only has lightning to read by. She says, it's getting cold outside. He says, the wind now carries the shape of who we are. She says, these days with you are gifts I no longer wish to receive. He says, I never know what shirt fits me best when I wear my heart on my sleeve. She says, don't worry. The heart maintains its beat even when its love moves on. Be one with the world, one with yourself. One with the tranquility gallery behind your eyes, one with its humble paintings of peace and prosperity, one with how that gallery is so often under reconstruction, deconstruction, one with how everything is so impermanent, so fleeting, how your every thought breeds Frankensteins and angels. Be one with all your Frankensteins and angels. Be one with being wide awake with everyday magic, the abracadabra of glorious allegory written into your every step. Be one with the forward and backward of all your human steps. How in every positive action, seeds of limitation find their way to fruition. Be one with the bitter fruit of not always getting what you want. May that bitterness help your successes taste all the sweeter. Be one with money, clean money, blood money, funny money, one with the hard work you offer as daily sacrifice to the 9-to-5 grind, one with all the con artists, sham shamans, con and thugs, all those constantly wanting to take a bite out of your wallet, your pocketbook, your higher consciousness in life. Be one with these terrorist times. How glittering guns are the new silver spoon given to newborns, how bombs can be so readily made from common household products strapped to the waists of suicide junkies or packed into vehicles driven to your doorstep. Be one with the song of napalm encoded into your DNA, the inherent and self-annihilating dirge of burn, baby, burn. Be one with our climate changing, severe weather patterns, hurricanes, blinding heat, polar ice caps melting into water, so much water. Be one with water, all waters, flood waters, baptismal waters, life-giving, life-taking waters. Be one with how something so clean and pure as water can be both womb and tomb. Be one with how you can be somebody, nobody, one with how you can write your name 10,000 times across the chalkboard sky, yet still never claim the heavens as your own. Better to share the sun, moon, and stars. Better to see your lover's face when you stare deeply into the cosmic mirror. Be one with society's crazy diamonds, the lost souls, lunatics, restless romantics, and the like. One with how they all yearn to shine so bright. How you thread flesh and blood through durable needles, sewing yourselves into the fabric of life, staying close to the lines of reality, but often straying to dream. Be one with your inner child and all the paper airplanes he or she creates. Be one with your inner TSA agent when he wants to check your emotional baggage or perform cavity searches before you board those paper airplanes to take off on great flights of imagination. No, your inner TSA agent's ultimate job is to ensure a safe flight. But also know that sometimes the safest flights aren't always the best flights. Be one with your inner TSA agent, one with your inner child and all the paper airplanes. Be one with the sailing away. Be one with traffic, the slow drivers, road rage drivers, one with your cities, boozers and beauties, the deities and needy dancing beneath a peroxide blonde moon, accompanied by the music of apocalypse jukeboxes as coyote radar surfs the airwaves, searching out the perfect thrill, the perfect kill, penned in blood and written across the first and last breath of all things. Be one with the first and last breath of all things. Be one with the tick-tock ticking of the clock, the hands of time holding you for only a moment, then moving on. Be one with how no moment in time shall ever be repeated the same way twice. Be one with how you're a different person from one moment to the next. You slough dead skin cells, dead hair, fingernails, toenails, growing thoughts, changing the molecular structures of you, both living and dying at the same time. Be one with how your body and being will eventually fail you. One with how the day you'll become a stranger to everyone and even yourself. Be one with death. Death of family, friends, loved ones, pet death, great, big, overwhelming universe death. Be one with the final, everlasting, great big bang of it all. Be one with the grass on your future grave. May it be filled with millions of volts of goodness and green. May it offer a home to insects and other wildlife. May it welcome and bear the weight of those pass over you. May the grass on your future grave be drunk on sunspeak and rise and shine. May it witness the world with eyes of all seeing. Bride, may it pray to the saint of rain. Be one with the world, one with yourself. One with the rich man with slums running through his veins. One with the beggar possessing a cathedral heart. Be one with your Frankensteins and angels, the boozers and beauties, deities and needy, lost souls, restless romantics, Republicans, Democrats, sham shamans, bombs, hurricanes, pain. Be one with the tick-tock ticking of the great big bang it of all clocks. Send in all loving and luminous messages through the dark and dead of night, typed on the telegraph keys of your heart, and your heart pulse, pulse, and your heart pulse, pulse of heartbeat, pulse of Cyndi Lauper song beat, pulse of lights, pulse of lights, pulse of bodies dancing, pulse of joy and freedom, pulse of heartbeat, pulse of song beat, pulse of clock striking 2 a.m., pulse of gunfire, pulse of gunfire. Pulse of brains wondering if that sound is part of the song, pulse of gunfire, pulse of gunfire. Pulse of voices yelling, crying, screaming, pulse of bodies rushing for safety, pulse of bathroom and exit doors swinging open and closed, pulse of gunfire echoing through screams, pulse of fingers frantically typing out final text, pulse of sirens, pulse of sirens, pulse of bullets searing flesh, shattering bones, pulse of bloodshed, pulse of bloodshed. Pulse of bodies breathing final breaths, pulse of bodies feeling final pulse of songs, pulse of final breaths and heartbeat songs mixed with blood and pulse of sirens, pulse of social media blowing up with another mass shooting, pulse of networks blowing up with another mass shooting, pulse of newscasters speaking the names of the injured and dead, pulse of politicians speaking the names of the injured and dead, pulse of shock, rage and fear, pulse of tears, pulse of tears, pulse of time repeating itself, pulse of protest, pulse of prayers, pulse of protest, pulse of prayers, pulse of brains wondering when the next round of bullets will fly, pulse of brains wondering why the next round of bullets must fly, pulse of time repeating itself, pulse of protest, pulse of prayers, pulse of protest, pulse of prayers. Quick, turn to the person next to you, place 2 fingers upon their wrist, feel the pulse of blood, remind yourself you're still alive. Things we've said under our breath, things people have said with their last dying breath, things that drive people to drink, things that made Jesus think, maybe I'm in the wrong line of business, things you can only find in Detroit, things that make you jump for joy, things that make people jump from the Golden Gate Bridge, things you get stuck between your teeth, things you've stuck in your ear, up your nose, or up your butt. Things that change from ugly to beautiful, things that frighten you, things that enliven you, things to help reduce your credit score, things to help lower your cholesterol, things organisms have done to adapt, things that make certain men become priests, things that make certain women wrestle alligators, things serial killers think about. Things you find in a dead man's pockets, things you find in your own pockets, things named after Greek gods, things people have done in the name of God, things that cause acne, things that cause cancer, things to consider before having a baby, things to consider before joining the French Foreign Legion, things you would do if you had wings, things you would do if you had the Green Lantern's power ring, things to help clear out your aura, things to help clear out your orifices, things you should always buy generic, things you've always wanted to know but were afraid to ask. Things you see when looking up at the clouds, things you do when your pets are not around, things you can smoke, things you can recycle, things behind the sun, things that make your car run better, things you find alongside the road, things you find washed up on the beach, things you build, things you compete for, things you do when you're alone in your room, things you can burn, things you can say to get a girl wet, things you can say to get a guy hard, things to say to get kicked off jury duty. Things you can carry, things you can hide, things that decay, things that rejuvenate, things you put into compost piles, things that live under your skin, things you find around Jim Morrison's grave, things your doctor won't tell you, things your parents won't tell you, things your best friend won't tell you, things your lover won't tell you, things that major corporations won't tell you, things that government won't tell you, will never tell you. What was said at the reunion of deathbed wishes. I want to seek out tomorrows that drink optimism, straight no chaser. I want to dress our deepest sorrows in easy to shed miseries, remove all billboards from the overcrowded highways of our minds. I want to prove that white noise loves black jazz, that Mr. Rogers was a CIA operative hired to test the limits of human kindness, that the reason dogs howl is because it's far easier than reciting Ginsberg's Howl by memory. I want to create drive-through therapy for when we just need a to-go cup of healing. Build monuments to love letters still written by hand, offer landmark status to all remaining phone booths, build bookstores on Mars, underground libraries for bookworms, create bright playgrounds in the cloudy eyes of the dying. I want to expose all false idols for being truly idle, recycle old lies into lions guarding the gates of greatness. I want to televise the next revolution without any commercials, create a medication to remove all self-inflicted blemishes from our conscience, drop poetry bombs into lives without enlightened, compose songs of tectonic forgiveness along all our faults. I want to swap eyes with a stranger to see how others witness life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rich, for that powerful performance. Thank you. Whew. That was incredible. Wow. Thank you so much to all our readers, to Kathryn, to Gustavo, to Alexis, to Rich. I'm going to make a couple announcements, and we're going to do a Q&A for about 20 minutes if people want. So our next quartet reading, I thought this was a huge success, so we will be doing another one. We already have it planned for Saturday, November 14th. Again, it's going to feature 2 current Moontide authors and 2 future Moontide authors, so it's going to be super exciting. It will be featuring our very own Danya Akuli, Hanalena Fennel. Thank you, Hanalena. Danya is the author of Contortionist Tongue, and Hanalena is the author of Letters to the Leader, which is a collection of poems in response to Trump's 55 executive orders. So that's going to be, I mean, that is a fun book. You can get those books. They are all, but our future authors will be fortunate enough to present at that quartet reading will be Rob Sturma, who was on a little bit earlier, Oklahoma City poet, but he used to live here in Southern California. He's got a great collection of just a lot of poems. He's very much inspired by pop culture. He's the editor of Freeze Ray Poetry, so there's going to be a lot of pop culture poems in that collection. It's incredible. And also Kelly Gray, who I'm so excited to get to share her collection with the world in 2021, and it's going to be dynamite. So that's going to be Saturday, November 14th. So save the date. We'll be posting an event page for that in the coming month of October, I am sure. And we do not have a quartet reading planned for October, and I haven't made the reach out to authors yet, but I will be doing that soon. So Moontide Press published, I think it's 2 Octobers now. So the book is now 2 years old, Dark Ink, a poetry anthology inspired by horror. I also love pop culture. So it is an anthology with poems in response to the genre of horror film, horror literature, horror tropes. That Dark Ink book, which you could also purchase on Moontide Press, has 66 poets in it. So we're going to do a Zoom Dark Ink reading on October 24th. So I'm going to be sending it out. Ask to, if anybody is in the Zoom audience who is in that collection, look for it. It's just going to be very free for all kind of thing. Those who can join us. There's so many poets in that collection who are not local to Southern California and never been able to be part of a reading. So I'm hoping we'll get some voices from all over the country joining us for that. That's going to be scheduled for October 24th. Saturday, October 31st, we thought about, but Halloween for me is like a national holiday. I spend it pretty much watching these all day, so I'm not going to break my holiday tradition. So we're doing it on the 24th. That said, thank you again so much to all the readers, all our audience. This was a fantastic event. I'm going to open it up for a Q&A right now. If you have a question for an author, please write a question in the chat. I'm following it right now, and we will ask that author. So any amazing questions? I'll give you a moment to type. Is anybody typing? We're just trying this Q&A thing. If the Q&A thing doesn't take off, it's not going to be a part of the next one. People might just be so incredibly floored by all the amazing poetry that a Q&A is kind of just, they just want to be left with the words of the poetry, which I can appreciate. I'm just trying things out. Thank you for being the first poets. Okay, this is a great question. Leanne Hunt asked, how does the concept of body inform your work? And who is that directed to, Leanne?
Volunteers for any of the four.
Okay, thank you. That's for unmuting. Poets, if any of the four just want to chime in, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and respond to that. And then I'll get the next questions on point. So answer briefly as you can so we can fit questions in. So anybody want to jump on? Again, to any of the poets, how does the concept of the body inform your work?
Jump on.
Well,
for my work, the body is a huge part of what I write about. It's interesting too because I was realizing I'm working a lot on the performative aspect of my work, and I'm realizing how much of the poetry actually dwells within the body, and how the body is actually the vehicle for the work to come out. So a lot of my poetry focuses on the body and how it is the body navigates through this landscape, the landscape politically, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. So I'm realizing that the body is probably the biggest aspect of my work, where it comes from. So much of the work is embodied, it comes from there. And I really think that it's an interesting question because as I was reading, I could actually feel the words inside my body. And I'm realizing more and more that that's where the art and the work originates, in the body, in the soul, and the spirit. And it comes out to be something that we can all share together. So it's something that we all have in common and that we can all find common ground with in the work.
Thank you, Kathryn. I'm going to move on to the next question. That was a great answer. Robin Axworthy wants to know, Gustavo, what your process is.
My process is staring at a blank page for about 3 hours and and then writing one word and going from there. No, I'm actually pretty, I don't write every day. I don't write every week sometimes. It just depends on whether I think up, like an idea, okay, I want to write about this. And then as I'm writing, sometimes I'll lose interest in whatever it is that I started to write, but I'll find something in the poem that I'm excited about, and I'll go from there. Like I'll find a word or like a line. But the biggest thing for me, I think, and sometimes people are interested as far as like, when do you write? I always like to write in the morning or very late at night. Those are like the only two times that really work for me or are productive. But the biggest thing for me is I have to be excited about what I'm writing about. Like if I don't get that giddy feeling that, oh my gosh, like I'm, this excites me. I think this is good, then I tend to just throw stuff away, and then like take it to the scrapyard and just pick little bits and pieces out sometimes for other poems. But yeah, that's basically it.
Cool. Thanks, Gus. I'm going to save Hanalena's question for the end. It'll be like a lightning round question because I really like that question. So Kelly Gray asked for Alexis, have you seen changes in women getting their writing on sex published, and will it ever get easier?
Wow, what an interesting question. When I first started publishing my work in 2012, I sent it to really top-tiered magazines. I didn't know any better. And I would get the same kind of mixed message. We hate erotica, we hate pornography, but we love your work. And I thought, well, what am I doing right? I don't know that it's going to get easier. I think it gets different. I think as you have some kind of publishing behind you, you get to be more well-known. People are more welcoming. I don't know how it would be. I know Kathryn is writing about the body, and I don't think it's gotten easier, except that there are a lot more women publishers and editors now, and either they are really, really squirrely. I mean, I had one editor, publisher, who shall remain nameless, who wanted me to change a word that was one of the words in the poem that I wrote that was published in Best American Poetry. And I figured if it was good enough for Edward Hirsch, it was probably good enough for her. However, that said, I agreed because I wanted to be in an anthology with Dorianne Locks and Sharon Olds and all these top tier poets. So what do you want? What are you willing to give up to get it? I hope that answers.
Thank you, Alexis. Okay, I'm going to cap the questions. I've got 3 questions left. So this next question is directed to Rich from Robin Axworthy. Robin's interested in your use of repetition as a dramatic and musical device. I'd be interested in hearing more about this.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Robin, and very insightful of you to ask that. I'm a drummer. I'm a musician, so that's definitely part of it, just musicality and recalling certain rhythms of words and things. And also I'm a big fan of Harlem Renaissance, different writers during the Harlem Renaissance, Langston Hughes, Jean Toomer, and different writers that would, and even beyond that period, but writers that would use certain phrases they would recall, in the poem and things like that. And also just kind of touching upon that question about the body, I like to embody what I read, or I guess I could say perform. So, in feeling like my body's an instrument, at times I kind of feel that my body's an instrument, so to say, just pushing the words out and, and it takes time sometimes when I'm practicing a poem. Sometimes certain phrases will click, or certain repetitions will click and it'll sound good, or things will get caught on my tongue and won't sound good to my ear, so I'll throw those out. So so there is a lot of music involved with my work, and thank you for picking up on that.
Cool. Okay, these next 2 questions are going to be lightning questions, which means very brief answers from each poet. I think these are really, really great questions. So we'll go in the order in which you read tonight to the answers to these questions. So that means, Kathryn, you're on deck first, then Gustavo, then Alexis, then Rich. Okay? The first one, I feel like a game show host. This is actually kind of fun. The first question I'm going to ask that's for everybody is, I just lost it, I'm so sorry, is what first attracted you to the language of poetry? Kathryn.
Such a hard question because I don't know what attracted me to poetry. I just started writing when I was a child. And a lot of what Rich was saying, it was the music. behind the words and how the music actually evoked the language that would come out. So much of my work is lyrical first, and I think it was just my search for answers to understand myself in the world and to understand what's internal and external. I think I used language to dig deep and to excavate. And then I started realizing that I had a knack for language and music and was able to put it together. And then that brought me to poetry. I didn't actually even start taking poetry really seriously until I was like 29. So wasn't even that long ago, maybe 5 years ago, that I really started focusing on the work I always wrote. But I realized that I need the sound and the music and the language together to help me try to express and also understand what I am, why I'm here, and all the deep, crazy questions that bring you down the rabbit hole. That's what brought me to poetry.
Thank you, Kathryn. Gustavo.
I think that originally I found out that words had power from, and I know this is going to sound interesting considering the type of stuff I write, but I was a big Joan Rivers fan when I was a kid, like when I was like 10. So that was the first time that I saw how putting certain words together can move people a certain way, like they can make people laugh, right? And so that's when I first learned language has power. And as far as poetry, I'm heavily influenced by musicians. So I was in high school in the 90s, and so much stuff was coming out, like PJ Harvey, Tori Amos, Fiona Apple. The Cranberries were like one of my first, favorite bands. And so, yeah, a lot of my poetry, and that's where the catharsis comes from. I don't think I know really how to write another way. And I think that's where it stems, is from these awesome musicians.
Thanks, Gustavo. Alexis.
Before I was a poet, I was a musician, like the rest of you, it would seem. I write out loud. I write always out loud. It's all about rhythm and cadence and the way the words sound in my mouth and to my ear. I remember being very, very young, and my father especially was very much into music, and he would bring home rock and roll one day and Verdi opera the next day, and everything in between. So I grew up with that ear, that kind of ear for lyrics, that ear for cadence. And I think poetry was natural for me. I wrote a poem seriously in 7th grade. I was in a class of writers, and everyone was told to write a poem, and there were maybe 30 of us. And the next day, my teacher came back in, and we'd all handed in our poems, and she looked at the class and she said, there was one poem that was any good. And then she read my poem, and that was it. I was a poet.
Excellent. That's a great story. Thank you. Rich.
I think basically what first got me into writing and storytelling, until I was about 12, I lived in North Carolina, and just hearing people tell like ghost stories and stories of the South, and it just always sounded like the spoken word and the lyricism of it, the music of it, the story and the hauntedness and the beauty of it. It really got me from a young age. So I would say that in general. And what kind of sealed the deal, my last year at Rutgers University, I took a fiction writing class. In the very last week of class, which was sort of like the ghetto week of the class, the teacher did like, all right, we'll do poetry for the last week. And I was just like, oh, this is great. And at the very end of the class, the professor said, your fiction's okay, but you really like poetry. I think you got some promise there. So, And then I packed up my car, took my drums, drove out to California, stopped at City Lights Book, picked up Corso's Gasoline, and that was really when I knew, like, yes, poetry.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. Okay, this is our final question. Let's make this one another lightning round, quick question. Elena's question is, what event or reading are you excited to do in person once we are with people again?
Oh,
She's actually said when we are people again. So that goes to suggest we are not people anymore. So Kathryn, what event or reading are you most excited to do once again? It could be probably an ongoing reading or something that you're looking forward to.
I'm just looking forward to meeting you all in person. So many of you that are here tonight, I know from Facebook and just from the virtual world. So I don't really have anything set up right now, but I'm just excited to embrace you all in flesh and give you all a hug. And thank you for being your beautiful selves.
Thank you, Kathryn. Gustavo.
I'm with Kathryn. I think that I've met so many people in the last year online that I just want to, I don't care where we're reading, as long as we're together, I want to, you know, read and then go get dinner and go get drinks and maybe hug. That's what I want.
Beautiful response, man. Alexis.
I miss that one-on-one with an audience. Again, I'm a trained theater actor first, and I want that crackle in the air. I want to look at people and have them look back at me and know who's really listening. A lot of my work, I hope there are laughs, and work I've read fairly often, there are laughs. And I find when I read it online, I hold for the laugh and there is none. I want that. That's what I'm looking forward to wherever I read. If there are any bookstores left by the time this thing is over, I want to read at Gatsby's. I want to read it beyond Baroque. I just want to read to a live audience again. Not that you guys weren't great. You're great, but.
Well, I mean, we're not people. So, according to Hanalena.
Well, and who would argue with Hanalena?
That's I feel you. That's a very on point response to that question. I'm 100% there with you. Finally, Rich.
Really, I think any poetry reading in person is just going to be amazing. But my dream event would be to combine Moontide, do a Moontide reading with Susan Hayden's Library Girl. That would be like
cool,
amazing.
I like the way you dream, man. That sounds great. Awesome. Thank you so much again. Big thank you to Kathryn, Gustavo, Alexis, and Rich. Thank you, Dania, for posting the links to all the stuff we talked about, how to order books, how to get a hold of a Moontide mystery bag, how to become a patron, many different options of patron packages to help support the press and help us put out these amazing poets. And thank you to our audience. We had at the most we had was about 38, 39 people, I think, which was great. I'm always really nervous about these kind of events, whether they're in person or virtual. And this was really well attended and well loved. And I think everything to our amazing readers and poets tonight. So thank you guys so much. I really, from the bottom of my heart, I love all my authors dearly. So thank you for being a part of the Moontide family. And the audience, you're a part of the Moontide family too. Thank you guys so much. We hope to see you at the next Quartet reading in October for a Dark Ink readings. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And this is Moontide signing off. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis, Gustavo, and Rich. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Ciao.
Bye.